test yet. And so, yeah, I feel like probably math.
Nice. That makes total sense. Okay, well, sounds good. I would love for your English scores to be up to a 32. So maybe what we can do together is you can tell me at the end some math concepts you want to hit, and then in the meantime, I'll kind of test your grammar skills and just make sure that we have no mistakes, no errors whatsoever.
Yeah, there's going to be a little bit of a struggle because I was telling this to Julia. I just need to focus more on the going over the grammar sheet, and then she gave me some practice stuff that I have to do before next time. But I just struggle with knowing what's a full sentence and what's not a full sentence, and so with comma rules and stuff like that, I always mess it up. And so,
We can make sure that full sentence thing is down pat real quick. So what does a full sentence need? A subject and a verb. Let's say that. A subject and a verb. Yeah, and so the reason I like to say subject is because that is a noun, but it's a noun that does a thing. It's the noun that actually does the verb, right? The noun that actually does the verb. Now, let's kind of test you on the certain types of punctuation, right? So punctuation, what we need to know is apostrophes. So when can you use apostrophes on the ACT? No worries. We'll start with the apostrophe punctuation. We use apostrophes for possessives, and if it's going to be before the S, then obviously it's singular, and then after the S is plural. Basically, you add an S pretty much every single time. The foxes, right? The women's. If it's plural but does not end in an S, like women, then you just add one with an apostrophe, and that still could be plural, even though it's women, which is not ending in an S. And then the archaeologists right here. So this is a plural word that does end in S. You just add the apostrophe at the end. No big deal. Cool? So this says, at the Tinker's Convention, Jose browsed for a long time before deciding he wanted to buy something from the leather worker's stall. Okay, the leather worker's stall. What's confusing about that? What's the point of confusion? Yeah, exactly. And that's what we're clarifying. So what you should know is that clarity is correct, right? This test is all about clarity. Okay. If we can clarify, then we win. All right. So if it's just one letter worker, then you put it before the S. Okay. So literally it's like let's eat grandma. Have you heard of that one before? What is that? Let's eat grandma. So let's eat grandma goes like this. You could say let's eat grandma versus let's eat. And these are both correct, right? But this one is addressed to grandma. So you're clarifying that you're talking to grandma. And this one is cannibalism.
yeah.
All right. And so similarly here, we can put the apostrophe after the S, and that means there's multiple leather workers that are at the same stall. Or we could put it before the S, and it's just one leather worker. So it's before the S. Does that make sense? So you're determining whether you need the apostrophe at all, and then if it's plural or singular. That's the only trick to it. And then if you follow this rule, then you win. That's it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? All right. Now on to our next rule. So next we ask ourselves, hey, should this noun actually be possessive or should it not be possessive? Because sometimes it's not going to be super clear. So here are some examples that they're going to test you on. And I'll send you the blog that this goes to afterwards so you can kind of read. Okay. All right. So here's how we determine whether it's going to be possessive here. It says Sally's ball. It's just another way of saying the ball of Sally. So if you want to figure out if the noun is meant to be possessive, take the noun and put of in front of it. And then stick the noun after the phrase that follows. And it's very easy. So here we go. When my computer crashed, I lost a month's work on my plan. And then you're asking yourself, okay, a month's work, should it be possessive? We would try to switch it around, right? I lost the work of a month. All right. So basically the point is it should be I lost a month's work because it makes sense if you say of in front of it.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Just like it's and it is. And so you just add it.
Yeah, exactly. And then you mentioned it's and it is. That's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Whereas this one is possessive. Very good. And so any noun can be possessive, right? And you might be thinking, okay, this is the reason why this is a good question is because a lot of people are like, oh, the month isn't a person. Doesn't matter. Any noun can be possessive. Any noun. You're more likely to see questions where there's a necessary apostrophe missing or misplaced than you are to see ones with an extra apostrophe that you don't need. All right, that's the tip for possessives and apostrophes. Now, what do I mean by if a noun is plural or singular? Give me an example of plural noun. Yeah, balls. Very good. Ball versus ball. Simple. That's the simplest one. Very nice. Very nice. It is hard to think on the spot. Have you seen those YouTube videos where it's like, name any woman? And the guy's like, what? Yeah. So no worries there. So now what we need to talk about is when placing apostrophes, whether the possessive noun is meant to be singular or plural, whether the neighbor's dog or the neighbor's dog is correct. And so you have to look at context clues to determine how many of the noun there are meant to be. Kind of like how we said at the conference, we're assuming in that leather workers that it was just one person at the booth. All right. So when my computer crashed, comma, I lost a month's work. Okay, cool. So we've already established that months should be possessive, but now we have to know, is it months like multiple or is it singular? All right. But then there's this thing called an article. Okay. Article. All right. What is an article in the English language? What do I mean by that? Have you ever heard of that word? Like you've heard of nouns and subjects. Yes, it sounds good. Not a lot of people ever teach you what an article is, but an article is like a, that's alpha, is like a in a sentence, right? So an indefinite article is what it's called. You use this before a singular countable noun, right? So a doctor, a car, a university, right?
Yeah.
And then you use an as well. That's another indefinite article. And this is used before a singular countable noun that is not specific and begins with the vowel sound, A, E, I, O, U, right? An hour, right? An idea, okay? So those are articles, okay? They're basically any word that comes before a noun to show whether the noun refers to something specific or general. That's all an article is. So it's like A. It's pretty much what you should know.
Something subjective, right?
Good question. So the speaker and the listener know who the person is, right? So you say, I saw the dog. That's a specific dog that you both know about. Or I met the doctor. That implies that you guys kind of know who you're talking about, right? I met the doctor, a particular doctor. Okay, so a general would be like a car, any car. Specific is the car. Yeah, good question. But an article is the or a. That's pretty much what you need to know for what an article is. So now going back here. So I lost some months of work on my plan to take over the world. So some indicates more than one. And so we make months possessive. We need to put the apostrophe after the S. All right. That'd be like a multiple month thing. If it's just 1 month, then it's just I lost a month's work, right? Then it has to be singular. So a versus some. See how they're changing that? And that's the context clue that tells you if it's going to be singular or plural. All right. Is that making sense? Okay. How are you feeling so far? Is this still confusing or is this kind of clearing things up slowly?
It's clearing things up. So let's just work on possessive. How do I identify that?
Yeah, let's do a practice question here. So we're going to see if we can apply this now. So here's a possessives practice question. The ACT tests possessives in the same way we discussed. So take a look at this example here. Benjamin Banneker, African-American inventor and astronomer, that's what we call a positive. We'll talk about that in a second. Grew up on his family's farm. Okay, let's work through this. Is family's possessive, first of all. If you switch it around and you said the farm of his family, would that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes. And so is it possessive?
Yes.
Yes. Good. Now, is it family or what do you think?
Family.
Yeah, it's just the first one. It's singular, right? Because it's like his family. This is kind of implying that, we only have like one family typically. So this is going to be singular. Okay. And that's what we've decided. That's all you have to do. All the work. You have to decide if it's singular and if it's going to be possessive. And we've decided this is going to be possessive. We decided it's going to be singular. And therefore, we know that the answer has to be with family and an apostrophe, which narrows it down to A and B. Okay, A and B. Families and then family, because that's the singular. This is the plural, right? We cross out the plurals. Cool?
Yeah.
And now it's really simple because it's one family, right? The apostrophe denotes possession. Like there's some counterexamples like his iPhone. His is telling you it's possessive, But basically, it shows that something belongs to someone. So the doctor's bag, right? The doctor's bag, the bag of the doctor, right? Or Anna's book, the book of Anna, you could say. So that's denoting that it belongs to them, right?
Yeah.
And then the only other, go ahead.
Is there an example? There's not an example. Sorry. Sometimes I like to reword like the exact same sentence and see what it would look like in the opposite way. So I guess what's another way? Let's just look at an example of one that is not possessive. Sorry.
Okay, an example of one that's not possessive. Typically, it's going to be very obvious that it's belonging to somebody because that's the only differentiating factor. It's going to be clear they're testing you on possession. That's going to be obvious. The only hard part is deciding, is it singular, is it plural, and do I need to do something weird with the plural verb or whatever? Like, that's the only weird thing. Yeah, like women versus women's or something. Like, that's the only hard stuff. The hard stuff is not deciding if possession is... Yeah, because it's possession, right? It's yours or mine, That's not what the hard part of it. So, yeah. Women is already irregular, and so you just add the apostrophe S for possession in most normal cases. All right? Okay. Could have versus could have, right? All that stuff. Basically, could of, should of. The way I'll make this really simple, should of, always wrong. If you're trying to determine basically if the contraction is general though, basically just replace this with its full form. I should have. That's right, right? This should have, could have is wrong way of thinking of should have. So just know that, right? And then you actually brought up this one and you did so quite well. It's it is, right? And that's because we pretend that this is a little I there, right? The S is not a word. Okay. Now let's talk about semicolons, okay? So there are a couple other punctuation marks we need to know. Semicolons, colons, and dashes, okay? So
Julia about this. I was like, what's the point? They all pretty much do the exact.
Yeah, good. They're very distinct. So let's break this down. So, all right. Semicolons are basically wishy-washy periods. Okay, but I don't like how they're explaining this. Basically, a semicolon is the same thing as a period. It connects independent clauses to independent clauses. Okay, that's what it does. All right. Now, they're going to try to get you because after, anytime you start a sentence with after, that's not going to be a complete independent clause. Do you agree? Good, good. How did you learn that? Who taught you that? Good. Julia's doing really good. I'm really impressed that she taught you that rule because that's a very good rule. So, yeah, you could try it yourself. Like after the dog sat, the dog sat is totally an independent clause, right? It has a subject and a verb. The dog sat. But if you say after or a gerund, like you said, the ing, then this becomes a dependent clause. And you cannot use semicolons to connect dependence into independence. That's not what it does. That's why this is incorrect. Could you tell me why this is incorrect? Good. And so this test becomes super easy because it's just dependent, independent. You can't connect that way. Easy done. The correct one is the amusement park has for, right? The amusement park, subject, has, verb. Maria was, subject, verb. Period, period. That's all you need in this full thing to know that you connect them. And what are the three main ways to connect independent clauses? Nope, not commas. Independence and independence. What are the three main ways to connect independence with independence? Okay, so it's period capitalization, semi-comma fanboys. That's called a comma coordinating conjunction. I'm going to ask you again because this is so important. What are the three main ways to connect independent clauses? Is it period, semicolon, comma? Is it period, semicolon, comma? Good. It is not. That's the biggest thing people mess up on. The comma alone is called a comma splice. If you just throw in a comma, it's called a comma splice, and that is 100% wrong. Okay. It has to be a comma fanboys or one of these comma coordinating conjunctions. What does fanboy stand for?
Or
Yet so.
yeah, so okay.
Good, good. All right. Because it just depends on what the structure of the sentence is doing, but any of them are fine. They're all technically correct as long as they're flowing with the meaning of the sentence. All right. So semicolons are interchangeable with periods. You'll never be asked to choose between these ever.
Nice.
Okay. And now the use of semicolons is to separate items on a list, especially if they include commas. For example, my whole family was at the reunion, including my cousins, this, my aunts, this, and my grandparents. All right, this is the smallest chance that you'll ever see. This is the weirdest thing ever. Basically, what this does is if you have items in a list, you usually use comma, comma, and for that, right? Like cheese, comma, milk, comma, and watermelon, right? That's a common example of a list. But if you have three items in the list, which they themselves have commas inside of them, like for instance, my aunts, Tracy and Megan, my grandparents, Carl, and my cousins. See how these are like, they have commas in between the items of the list?
Yeah.
That means we're going to upgrade what would be a comma to a semicolon now.
Okay, that was so, but would a comma still work?
Nope. No, because what is the point of all of this stuff? The point of all this stuff is clarity, right?
Yeah.
And so if we can clarify, we win, right? So basically what's happening here is including my cousins. See how this is one item in a list and it's got its commas around it? We have to have this. We have to have this comma here. We have to. And so it'd be really confusing. Everybody would be really confused if there's like another comma here just sitting there and another comma here. It's just weird. And so what we've decided as a society is that anytime you have items in a list which have commas in between them, we have to upgrade these to semicolons. We just upgrade these to semicolons. It's just a weird thing. It's clarifying that this comma right here belongs to the cousins Kristen and Jeremy, and the aunt's comma belongs to Tracy and Megan, and the grandparents' comma belongs to Carl. It's clarifying who the comma is associated with, because if you just had commas willy-nilly, it'd be like, what's going on? And this is a really, really strange use case where there's an item in a list and these lists have commas within the items. That's the strange use case, okay? I just have to teach you about it because it might show up.
Including my cousins, comma, Kristen, Jeremy, right there's a
Semicolon, yes. My aunts, comma, Tracy and Megan, semicolon. And my grandparents, comma, Carl and Jen. Yeah, it's just an exception. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah, just a little exception there. All right. Again, very small chance you'll see this, but yeah. All right, now we're on to colons. Okay. Colons are easy to mix up with semicolons if you're not prepared. So let's dive into that real quick. All right. Two punctuation marks look similar and have similar names. Colons can, in fact, connect two independent clauses. I always like to say there's the em dash and also the colon, which are interesting examples to, exceptions to the rule. So always know the three main ways. What are they? The other independent clauses. Period capitalization is the first one. What's the second one? Good. I always have to get you on those because it's the most important thing ever for the whole ACT. Yeah. Okay. Next, we have our em dashes and we have our colons. These are exceptions to the rule. Okay. So let's talk about them. Basically, the rule is they must come after a complete sentence.
Yeah.
So you have to have a complete sentence. Liz went. Yes, it's a complete sentence. Subject, verb. To the rest, all that stuff, who cares? That's a preposition. This is enough to teach me this is an independent clause. Cool. So we went shopping for all we needed for Halloween. Okay, so the supplies she needed for Halloween equals fake blood and witch hat. See how it just equals each other?
So it's just including the.
Yeah, it doesn't equal including. It equals fake blood. And so you don't need this including. That's like you go straight into it because you've used a colon. You can just go straight into the thing that equals the thing. It's like an equal sign. Here's a correct example. Liz went to the costume shop for the supplies she needed for Halloween. And then Halloween equals a holiday where people dress up in scary costumes and eat a lot of candy. Halloween equals that. And so that's why you can use it. Okay. Another correct example. Liz went to the costume shop. So we've explained this and now we're giving further explanation. And so we can actually just use a colon and then say she was planning to dress up like a zombie witch. Well, Blake, that's another independent clause, right? It's an independent clause and an independent clause. Yes, that's why I said this is an exception to the rule. We have an independent clause, and sometimes we can use a colon and do another independent clause, as long as we're giving further explanation on that first independent clause.
I see. So in the sentence above, if we switched Halloween and supplies she needed, then would that still be okay or no?
So like the supplies for Halloween she needed, a holiday where people... No, that wouldn't make sense because here, a holiday is referring to Halloween. And so you actually, think of it this way, there are two functions here. One is like an equal sign. And in that case, you have to have the item here equaling the item here.
Right.
Another instance is explanation, further explanation to a claim that's made in the previous phrase. And so here we're saying, hey, generally, she was planning to dress up as a zombie. And so it's giving us further explanation to Liz's endeavor here. And so it's the scope is different. Here we're trying to literally say holiday, and so it has to match up with holiday. Here we're trying to give an explanation. These are the two functions of colons.
Okay. And so for colons, is it two independent clauses or is it independent at the end?
As long as it starts with an independent, it can end with a dependent. It could end with an independent.
Yeah. And then another quick thing on commas. I remember I did a test last time, and then for 90% of the time or 99% of the time, it's dependent and an independent for commas. So Julia was trying to explain the rule to me for that, where it's flipped. I didn't quite understand.
Yeah. Can we cover commas as soon as I finish dashes? And then we'll cover all the comma rules? Okay, sounds good. We'll definitely do that though. Sounds good. So now moving on to dashes here. So I'll click back here. Now dashes, these are pretty flexible. And so ever since ChatGPT, everybody's been using dashes. So basically, you only need to understand two of its uses. One, marking off non-essential clauses and phrases. All right. And so basically the key is that you don't remove essential stuff. Okay. So here's an example. Incorrect. Allie was minding her own business when her brother, comma, a mischievous 8-year-old. Oh, that's a mismatch.
Yeah.
Think of it like shoes. One of your shoes style is a comma and the other one is, you can't do that. You have to wear matching shoes, right? You can't do that. You got to keep it consistent. So Allie was minding her own business when her brother, dash, a mischievous 8-year-old, dash, snuck up and surprised her. That's the first example, right? This is where we're basically using like a comma. It's the same thing. Next.
For example, they would never give me a sentence like this with two commas and two dashes and choose between them.
That's correct. They're exactly identical. Good. They'll never have you choose between them. Allie was minding her own business when her brother, comma, a mischievous 8-year-old. See how it's the exact same thing? It's just a comma. Nice. So to mark off non-essential clauses, the most important way to see the dashes here. All right, so Allie's 8-year-old brother surprised her, and then dash, You snuck up behind her and yelled boo. All right. So you can see dashes to introduce a list or an explanation. This is very similar to how you could use a colon. In fact, a colon
are essential, the explanation, and dashes can be removed.
No, there are two examples of when we use dashes. Okay, there are two use cases for dashes. The first is non-essential. That's the first category. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's like this stuff. This has to be non-essential. Next is explaining or introducing a list or an explanation. That list or explanation is similar to how colons operate. Okay. That's the analogy I was trying to make with colons. But this first thing has more in common with commas than it has in common with colons. Okay. So don't try to just think of them as colons or commas. They have two roles. One is non-essential information and the other is a list or an explanation. This first one is like a comma and the second one is kind of like a colon, but it's distinct. It's an em dash.
Okay. So I guess, well, like again, what's the purpose of dashes in a list if you can always use commas? Is it just
Yeah, it's like a stylistic way of
and so it's just a different style. It has nothing to do with anything else, just a different style.
Yeah, that's right. Literally just totally up to you, totally up to style. And that's the reason why everybody's like plagiarizing because ChatGPT, this identical to this, identical, no difference except for stylistically. And ChatGPT loves this.
Yeah.
All right. And now I want to do one more example, and then this will be a good segue to go into commas. You're good. You're good. Is this helpful, by the way? Okay. Nice. So here we're going to apply this. But all kayakers can appreciate the nuances of nature as they travel on water in this simple, comma, but versatile boat. All right. So we have to determine what doesn't work rather than what does. So let's start with the semicolon. But versatile boat. Is that an independent clause? No, and therefore we cross off D. Fair? Oh, we know a semicolon can't be correct, right? So it's a non-essential phrase. If you take out a sentence, it doesn't make sense. And so we can also rule out the dash. Okay. Yeah. Basically, a non-essential phrase could be taken out and wouldn't alter the meaning of the sentence. Okay. In the simple, it's like versatile boat is part of the description of the boat. It's like the difference between the and a before, general versus specific, or that bicycle. It's like part of the sentence. It's like that bicycle, not which bicycle. Like, and we'll talk about that later and when we get to restrictive clauses. But essentially the idea is this construction isn't non-essential because if you take it out, the sentence does not make sense. Like, let's take it out. Now it says all kayakers appreciate the nuance of nature as they travel on water in this simple.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Exactly. Just take it out. And if it doesn't make sense, then it was non-essential. And you can treat it as such. Yes. Good. Yeah. No, it's connecting. This is good. The dash has that first rule of the dash is that it's non-essential stuff, just like commas do. Is this making sense now? So eliminate it. Eliminate C. All right. And the comma is tempting because it's right before a coordinating conjunction. But, however, anytime we have a comma coordinating conjunction, what does that mean? On both sides, right? It has to be independent on both sides. And therefore, that's all right. So you don't want to interrupt this completely. And so that's why as is wrong. As is wrong. The comma but is wrong.
Yeah.
Therefore, it has to be just B.
Okay, that makes sense. So comma fanboys has to be on both sides.
Anytime you have a comma fanboys, that tells you this is a clue. That has to be an independent on the right and an independent on the left. Yeah, it's like if you see like a dead body on the ground. And I like to make this as like stick in your memory as much as possible. This is like you see a dead body. That's like you see a dead body. And the logic is that means somebody died. Somebody killed somebody. Like you're playing Clue. It's a dead body, so somebody killed somebody. It's like evidence, you know. And then similarly, this right here is evidence that there's an independent on the right and left. And the ACT is going to try to get you to think like, oh no, nobody did anything. No, and then so somebody did something. Like they're going to try to make you forget that this is clear and evidence that on the left and the right side, there's going to be somebody holding a candlestick in the library who killed them, right? This is evidence. This is evidence that there's an independent on the right and an independent on the left, just like a dead body is evidence that somebody killed somebody. And the ACT is going to try to make you forget about that. And that's all you have to do. It is so simple. It is literally just, hey, comma fanboys means there has to be a full independent clause, which has a subject and a verb. And the ACT is going to try to get you, oh man, look at all these other fluff. As long as it has a subject and a verb, you're good. Okay, cool? Now I wanted to go back to the commas so we could hit those rules, okay? And because that was what your question is about. And don't let me forget the question because you asked a good one. It was about commas, right? Okay.
It's dependent before and then independent after. But when I took a test, it was dependent before or independent before and then dependent after.
Yeah. So in my video, I always talk about like how after the war or like during the war I fought. So like I fought during the war. So basically it's like this. I fought during the war. You don't need a comma there. Do you agree? Whereas during the war, comma, I fought. Okay. And so the idea here is this is an introductory phrase. Anytime you have an introductory phrase, which is a dependent clause, you need a comma before you get into the meat of the sentence, which is a subject and a verb. So dependent to independent, you do need a comma insofar as this is an introductory phrase. This, however, is an independent clause, subject, verb during the war, dependent. So you don't need a comma there.
Yeah.
And so that's the general idea. I'd have to look at what they gave you and see why it was different, but it was probably different because they had some sort of a dependent clause introducing the idea that was the independent clause.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's dive in. Maybe it'll clarify. Use commas to separate words and word groups in a simple series of 3 or more items. All right. We had coffee, cheese, crackers, and grapes. This is the Oxford comma. Doesn't matter. This is clear, right? Next, use a comma to separate 2 adjectives when the adjectives are interchangeable. Only when they're interchangeable. Okay. If you can switch the order, then use a comma. Because again, the idea of a comma is the comma's like this matter, that matter, this matter, that matter. It's like, who cares? Who cares? Fish or tacos? Like, what do you want? It's the same exact thing. Commas are interchangeable kind of thing. So it's like, hey, vibrant, massive painting, massive, vibrant painting, no difference. All right. Okay. So next, when starting a sentence with a dependent clause, use a comma after it. That's what we talked about, right? And what Julie said is anytime you have when or any subordinating conjunction like when, during, all these dependent clauses, right?
Yeah.
Comma, independent clause. Then you use a comma. Okay, then I'll teach you about it and it'll be very, very clear. All right, so let me just pull up an image that I can share with you right here. There's a subordinating conjunctions list here. Can you see this list? Yeah. If you start a sentence with any of these, it is guaranteed to be a dependent clause. A dependent clause cannot stand on its own. So give me an example of the world's most clearly complete sentence. Soccer. Good. I play soccer. Subject, verb, right? Now add any of these and it becomes clearly a dependent. Ready? After I play soccer. Can that stand on its own?
No.
Nope. How about considering that I play soccer?
It only makes it automatically dependent if it comes at the start of the sentence.
Yes, but none of these, if you actually examine them, would ever make sense even at the end. Like you wouldn't say I play soccer yet if. So don't think about things so rigidly, my guy. Think about things just like the logic is that these things render the sentence unfinished, okay? And if it's unfinished, it's a dependent clause by definition. This is called subordinating conjunction. Oh, fancy schmancy word. Whatever. Basically, if I play soccer, not complete anymore. If I play soccer, not complete. See?
My problem. There. That's all I was doing. I was not really, just taking the set, but taking what it was about itself and seeing if it made sense.
Yeah. And maybe a good example of this is like you're looking for the odd one out. If you have subordinated conjunction, that's like a disguise. Like it's not enough to just realize there's a subject and a verb. That's not enough. You need to have that's a really, really good place to start. Really, really, really good. It's like better than 99% of the population if you just realize subjects and verbs are important. However, subordinated conjunctions are tricky little guys. They're tricky little guys because they nullify the subject and the verb because they make it unfinished business.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. My brother is the subject. Is the verb. A doctor is clearly necessary to this sentence. Therefore, you can't use commas. Commas are for extra explanation. I'll give you an example of when you would use it, though. If I were to say, like, the Eiffel Tower, right, located in Paris, is famous. The Eiffel Tower is famous. That's the meat of the sentence. Subject, verb, right? Hopefully this was helpful. How's the tutoring going with Julia, by the way? Are you improving?
It's great. We're doing twice a week and it's been really good. So
awesome, man. Well, let me know if you have any questions. Super happy to help at any point.